Cruel divorce revenge, cheating wife stories, Reddit cheating stories, audio stories. For more than 15 minutes, I waited. I had met him once or twice before, at staff Christmas parties and other such events, when his wife would bring him, but he never really stuck out in my mind, so I can't say that I really recall him. When he was finally ushered into the conference room, I was able to finally meet him. After taking a look at him, I became aware that there was something about him that was a little bit unsettling. He wore a fabric suit that had been manufactured just for him and must have cost him a cool $5,000. Not only was it not as small as I had anticipated, but it was also not excessively large. At first glance, he did not appear to be either young or elderly, nor did he appear to be timid or soft, but he did not appear to be menacing either. He did not appear stunned, perhaps slightly surprised, but there was no laughter in his eyes when I glanced at them. I had anticipated that he would be frightened, possibly afraid, but he came across as neither of those things. Upon taking a more in-depth look at his face for the very first time, I became aware that it appeared peculiar, possibly menacing or perhaps just a bit furious. Furthermore, his eyes were slate gray, not blue, blue-green, hazel, or brown. The rage manifested itself for a brief moment before dissipating almost immediately. Unconsciously, or perhaps for some other reason, I came to the realization that perhaps things were not going to proceed the way that we had anticipated. Considering that the reason we were here was because his wife was having an affair with my boss and our firm was representing her in a divorce, I wanted to make an effort to maintain my professionalism, at least to the extent that I could. I knew that if I did a good job here, it would go a long way toward earning my boss's support at the next partners meeting, and I was willing to ruin this man if it was required. I did not like doing this, but I knew that it would be beneficial. I was a little taken aback by the fact that he consented to attend the meeting, and I was much more taken aback when he came up by himself, without a legal representative. I am writing to inform you, Mr. Smith, that we are defending your wife in the divorce complaint that she has filed against you. As an alternative to going to court to battle this, we felt that perhaps we might reach a private agreement on some kind of resolution. When you say that you don't want a lawyer present, are you sure? I inquired about him. I was only given a courteous look by him. No need, he stated. There's really nothing to dispute here. Only he and I were present in the meeting room, there were no other people there. At least initially, his wife made the decision to abstain from attending the conference. Do you mind if I record the meeting? I inquired about him. Taking a little thing out of his pocket, which I believed was his own voice recorder, he replied, "Of course, be so kind," and then he placed the object on the table. Now, let me begin by saying that the financial report that you provided to us is completely lacking in any way. Your list does not include any assets. He did nothing but sit there and look at me. There is no trace of his actions here. Only the house, the car, and the bank accounts are included. Sorry to bother you, but you do not have a response to this. Was that a question that you were asking? At first look, it seemed to be a statement that did not require a reaction from the intended audience. Can you please explain the reason why the house is not featured on the list of assets that are located in this area? They start with $5 million and quickly grow from there. In point of fact, the house is not mine, rather, it is owned by a different person who is a friend of mine. I simply reside in that location. Your wife was under the impression that he was a member of your family instead of being a member of your family. The information that she was present with you at the time that they purchased it was reported. As you can see, I was under the impression that she was in love with me, and we all know how that turned out. It would appear that both of us were impacted by a series of incorrect perceptions at the same moment. However, this is not the case. If you submit this financial statement in response to our complaint and it turns out to be fraudulent, you will be punished for your conduct. You are aware, Mr. Smith, that it is a criminal violation to conceal assets, and you will be held accountable for your actions. In no way did he give the impression that he was worried. I always make it a point to keep a close eye on my eyes whenever I am participating in a conversation, and in this particular instance, his eyes returned to the rather shocked expression that they had been wearing previously. If my memory serves me well, I was nearly under the impression that he was having a good time with it. I was wondering if it would be okay if I referred to you as Jim? That is fine with me. Based on the fact that you used court records to perform research on the owner, I am going to infer that you found out that the person who owned the residence was a company. You can see that this is not actually my property because it is owned by a friend of a friend who also happens to be the person who grants me permission to dwell in the house. As a result, this is not truly my property. The home is owned by a shell company that is owned by another shell company that is owned by yet another shell company, and all of these shell companies are owned by still another shell company. I am willing to take a chance that we will be able to track it back to you at some point in the future, even if we have not yet been able to trace it all the way back to you. I am quite excited about this possibility. If I were a more pleasant person, I would gladly accept your money. If you understand what I mean, I would be more than happy to accept it. If you go back far enough, you will find out that a retired older gentleman, who bought it for financial reasons, is a friend of mine. This is something that you will learn if you go back far enough. This is something that I think to be true if you look back far enough in time. It is possible that you will be able to find him if you dedicate a substantial amount of time and money to the project. Nevertheless, it is essential that you do not antagonize him while you are undertaking this endeavor. In spite of the fact that I am aware of the fact that he lives in Colombia, it was never a good intention to do so. He waited for the word to come to him naturally. People from Colombia who have between $5 and $10 million to put up for the purchase of a home for another individual should never be annoyed by the situation. At this point, it is time for us to leave the house for the time being. When it comes to autos, no. Despite the fact that your wife mentions 14 different automobiles, including 2 rolls of Bentley, 3 Shelby Mustangs, a Jaguar XK12, and a variety of automobiles that she considers to be everyday cars, including a Ferrari, I am unable to locate any of these automobiles on the list of assets. I am unable to find any of these automobiles. To tell you the truth, if my wife were to bother looking, she would discover that I do not own a single automobile of my own anymore. They are owned by a number of different corporations, and the only responsibility that falls on my shoulders is to ensure that they are maintained. On the other hand, despite the fact that I ride them and make the most of them, I do not truly own them. If I'm being really honest, she never actually checked anything. She never did anything. There is a propensity for her to become quickly distracted by things that are beautiful. A well-known characteristic of gourmet cuisine is its excellent clothes. She was satisfied as long as we went to the best restaurants and she had a cook to cook and a cleaner to clean, but they are all employees just like me, and she is easy to divert. When we went to the best restaurants, she expressed her satisfaction. As long as we always went to the best restaurants, she was happy with our decision. Give me the opportunity to talk to you about your job. It is at the most prestigious dining venues that you eat. Take the wheel of a Ferrari or a Mercedes-Benz Bentley and have a thrilling experience. You are wearing a suit that gives the impression of being tailored, and the cost of the garment itself must have been greater than $5,000. Despite this, you assert that you make $664,000 per year in compensation. Your expectation that I will believe this to some degree, in a manner that is analogous to how my wife experiences things, is not realistic. My duty is that of a simple caretaker, and I am not liable for your beliefs. She has her viewpoint, and you have yours, but I am not responsible for your beliefs. I am not answerable for your beliefs. She alleges that you have been away for anywhere from a few days to a week at erratic intervals as a result of your numerous work excursions overseas. It has been claimed by your wife that you are frequently traveling abroad for business purposes. In what capacity does a caretaker travel for business purposes on such a regular basis, and does they always travel in first class? You decide to accept it, and it's only $64,000, isn't it possible that you could do it? The question I have for you, on the other hand, is whether or not you have a genuine interest in finding out the solution. The amusement faded all of a sudden on his face, and his look changed to one that was more serious. My course of action had already been decided upon, and I was helpless to make any changes to it at this time. It was not necessary for me to have an answer, and I did not wish to be involved in any way with this awful circumstance. Although it is possible that I would not be able to do so even if I wanted to, both my client and my supervisor will anticipate that I will obtain it in a manner that is equitable. I will provide you some helpful advice before everything is finished. The damage will be done, and unless you want to become so-called, I recommend that you take a holiday. I will give you some recommendations. There is a possibility that you will be required to take a gap of several weeks from your career. In this particular circumstance, you are the mediator, aren't you saying? When it comes to a cat playing with a mouse, do you have any experience with this? In the event that you have, you have to use caution because the cat is aware of the food that the mouse is going to consume, and even the mouse eventually deduces this information. On the other hand, the cat continues to let the mouse to escape, and the mice continues to escape from both of them. In spite of the fact that it is aware that it is dead, the mouse will continue to attempt to stay alive, but this will never be successful. To what extent does this pertain to the work that you do? Suddenly, his eyes became stony, but not in the way that a stone would be. The stone is not cold enough. Even I was able to feel the chill in the room. It's only now that I have arrived at this moment. You see, I work for a fascinating bunch of businessmen in a business that is both related to and competing with the one I work for. They engage in competition with one another at times, while at other times they work together and form alliances. In this day and age, I might say that they constitute what is known as a cartel. The appearance of people who, for one reason or another, require assistance is something that happens on a fairly regular basis. These are the individuals who average people are unable to deal with. They are too protected, too prominent, and too dangerous for the typical caretaker to handle for a variety of reasons. Now, they make use of my services. There are certain people that are in need of care, such as your employer, and I am concerned about them. He is a mouse that has not yet come to terms with the fact that he has already passed away, at which point he is just permitted to scamper around the room for a short while. Would you be able to comprehend that I am filming this? My request was to listen, please, and he indicated the recorder with his finger. I started by hitting the pause button, then I made a backup by clicking the play button after a few minutes or so, and then I clicked play one more. As he picked up the device that he had previously placed on the table, he noticed that the white noise was coming from the speaker that was integrated into the device. Isn't it a fact that it was convenient? Inside a radius of 500 feet, jams are audio devices and video cassette recorders. I was given an envelope by him after he reached into the pocket of his blazer and pulled out an envelope. There is a death certificate that has been carried out in the appropriate manner. Due to the fact that John Smith has passed away and did not leave any inheritance, there is no demand for a divorce to take place. It is not possible for her to get anything because the deceased person was cremated. I will not look for her if you tell her to run away from me instead of doing so. I do not have many feelings left for her, but if I come across her, she will pass away. She has 12 hours to bury herself somewhere. I do not have many affections for her. Provide your boss with the information that he is a mouse and that the cat is playing with him. The cat will pass away once he has completed his task. The only thing he can do is try to hide or run away, but he is already dead. Should I come for him, she will perish alongside him if she is present at the time. I will do it fast if he makes it easy for me, but if he resists, I will do it slowly and painfully. Tell him that I will work quickly if he makes it easy for me. Explain to him that I wish he had the bravery to try to fight, because I would rather do it slowly and painfully than any other way. I strongly recommend that you take this week off, it won't take much longer than that. He got to his feet, shook my hand, and then walked away. Everything he stated was relayed to both my employer and his girlfriend by me. Even though he was a ghost, the death certificate was legitimate. After turning pale, she fled, and we never saw her again after everything was over. Upon my return from a week spent in the Cape, I discovered that I had been given a promotion to a different area of responsibility. According to the information that has been gathered, the final one was killed in a catastrophic car accident and died as a result of being fried to death. Subscribing to our channel is something you should do if you want to make certain that your second chaff does not cheat on you. You should also make it a point to listen to the story that follows after this one, since the one that comes after it is very different from the one that you are currently listening to. Should you be younger than 18 years old, you should not even contemplate listening to the one that is about to be presented to you.